So, let's begin, artists. We're going to talk about the sculpture in the round. I have a piece of cardboard that I've covered with wax paper, and that is all. I'm going to later set it up on top of probably my K-12 cardboard box because I want it to be a little bit higher, but I'm going to start off rolling things, so this will be a good surface. Wax paper is nice because it won't stick to the surface this way. I'm going to take a quarter of the clay that I've received, so this is my K-12 pack, the same as you have, and one pack looks like this. You're using half of this for your relief sculpture, and the other half you're using for your sculpture in the round. Now, once you have taken your clay out that you're going to use for this project, I'm going to take half of it. You're going to want to put the rest tightly sealed back in the pack and put it in a Ziploc bag. That would probably be for the best. If you have a very tightly wrapped kitchen bag, that would be okay. Probably you would want to double it though, just to be sure. So I'm going to wrap this up tightly and put it in my Ziploc bag so that it's not all dried out next time I want to use it. You'll find that clay works really well with a variety of kitchen implements, so I've chosen some to work with, and you really don't need this many. I just wanted to show you the variety. So I have a plastic knife, I have a regular knife, and I'm going to try out this pattern as well. So if you have something that has a pattern that you would like to use, maybe you would like to try that. I'm going to use this plastic chopstick because it has some ridges and its plastic is easy to clean. You don't want to use anything that someone's going to be upset with you if you use it. A spoon might be nice for polishing, some chopsticks. I have a screwdriver because I like the edge here. Again, you don't want anyone's tool to become rusty, so you're going to want to clean these and dry these afterwards, but I thought this might be good for when we're going to attach pieces. I have a little sponge that I might use, some scissors, a pencil, and a paring knife, which might be good for carving. The toothpicks really might also be nice for scoring and slipping, which we're going to talk about a little bit later. I also have a screw and a plastic popsicle stick, which might be good again for smoothing the clay. These are the things that are just examples of some things that you could use as tools. You don't really need that many. You just need a variety of things that will help you make your sculpture. I also have made some slip. I'm going to add some more clay to this because it is too liquid. So I'm going to do that right now. It's just water and clay, and then I'm going to let it dissolve a little bit, and then I'm going to squish it up. So I'm going to put some fresh clay in there because you really want it to be like a paste, and this is more like milk. And I have a little container of water, just water, and those are the things that I'm going to work with. So I'm going to start by smushing my clay together because you can see it's quite, it looks like kind of marshmallowy or something, so I really want it to be more together. So I'm going to work it a little bit and kind of malax it together so that it's more malleable. Okay, and I'm going to make a variety of forms. My sculpture is going to be based on the mythological beast that I kind of invented, I guess. It's a cow-headed, fish-bodied, lion-pawed creature. So I felt that that would be an adequate challenge for myself, and that's what I'm going to work on. But I'm going to need appendages, just like yours will, as well as an oval head. So one of the things that is suggested in your unit is that you make a pedestal. Now this is all the clay that you have to work with. I really don't see how you can make a very big pedestal unless you're working very small. If you're happy to work with even less clay, then go ahead and pinch off a pedestal. But otherwise, I think you'll be able to prop up your clay using, things that are suggested, like a baseball bat, a ball. You might need a pedestal for part of your clay. You may need some, but I'm not sure that you need to start off with working with that much less clay right from the get-go. So keep that in mind, that you may need a pedestal, but it's not required, and if you'd rather incorporate that into your sculpture, that could be a good idea. I hope that you have worked with your sketching, thinking about gravity and thinking about how your figure, your human, your mythological creature, or your animal is going to be standing up. Are they going to be standing up on their own, two-legged? Are they going to be holding a spear, a baseball bat, a ball, something that they're leaning on? Are they having four legs? Do they have a tail? All of these things can help prop them up, but you need to have some sort of figure in an action pose. So all of them are going to have a head, so let's go ahead and start with that. And one thing to remember while we're working is that you need to be patient with clay. It's going to be floppy, and you're not going to be able to do much with it until you let it sit up a bit. So I'm going to make a basic oval for my head, and then I'm going to leave it alone, and I'm going to come back to it later. I'm just going to get it going, set it aside, and in a little bit I'm going to make some little indentions there for where the eyes are going to go, and that's going to be enough for me for my cow head. Now I'm going to do the same for a body. I'm going to compare them and, get something that's an adequate size for a body. And I'm going to make this kind of an oval shape too, but a little bit trapezoidal. So I might need to add some water. Keep it wet, but not too sticky. The hardest thing is waiting for your clay parts to stiffen up enough to attach them together, but you really don't want to start doing that until it's time. So using cling wrap on the ends, but not on the whole of the clay, will keep the ends that you're going to be attaching using scoring and slipping. That'll help keep them moist enough to where you can actually attach them together. The clay, we speak of clay like the body of the clay, not like the torso, but like the clay has a body, and we say that it has memory just like your own body has memory. Now, we're going to think about this as surgery, kind of. When you're attaching something with the clay, unless it's very wet, it's not going to stay on, and as this dries, they're going to pull apart like that. So you really need to make grooves as if so that your clay with all its parts communicates. And you can think of the slip that we're making over here as the blood that's going to join them together and make your creature whole. So you're going to want it to both set up enough so that it's not floppy like this, but at the same time be moist enough on the ends so that you can attach them. So the way I'm going to do that is by putting a little bit of water here at the end and just wrapping the end with some plastic loosely, just to keep that a little bit more moist than the other paw. A little bit later, I'm going to prop these up. Right now it's fine that they're laying flat, but I'm going to prop them up in the position that they're going to be in ultimately so that they actually take on and harden in the pose. But this will be enough right now. This one is actually sitting where I'm going to attach it, so I'm going to leave that alone for now. These are kind of smaller, and the smaller it is, the faster it's going to dry. One thing you may want to do is to just make a little ball of clay and leave it out for a little bit while you're working on something else and see how very fast it does dry. Okay, so I'm going to also, let's see, I'm going to set aside some like this for horns, and I'm going to work on the tail. Okay, so I'm going to take this amount of clay, and this is going to be the main part of my creature. It's going to be a tail, so I'm going to make a cone. I'm going to roll it more down at the base and a little bit less up at the top. So pressure more down at the base and less up top. And just make, do this until I feel like it's about the right length. Now, it is going to squish down some as it's drying just because it's weighty. And if I start sitting it the way that it's going to be ultimately right now, then it's just going to squish back into the shape, and it's not going, I mean, even if I just hung it right here, it would draw down. So it is going to change. So I'm going to, again, get this into a position that I want it. I'm going to wrap the tail because the tail is smaller. Not because I'm going to attach it into anything, but I just feel like I'm going to want to put some definition into the tip of the tail later on, and it's going to dry faster than this part up here because this part is fatter. So I'm going to start by doing that. This part up here, I'm also going to wrap because I'm going to attach that to my body later, and I don't want to have any problems with that. So I'm not really going to, oops, I can tell already that there's a weak point, so I'm going to just kind of work on that a little bit and set it down, and I'm going to come back to it later after it's had a chance to set up a bit. So really, this is what my sculpture is looking like, and I'm just going to do some horns, and then I'm going to leave it alone. I'm going to walk away from it, let it be, you know, probably for about half an hour, and then I'm going to check on it. I'm going to check on the smaller pieces for sure, just to make sure that they're not drying out. But I know, because I worked with this a little bit earlier, that it's probably going to take longer than that. It's probably going to be, you know, another hour at least before I do the next phase. So prepare yourselves to take breaks with this. So I'm going to go ahead and do the horns. So if you are doing something that requires hands and feet, it says in your unit to make balls and you'll attach them later. I think that the more attaching you do, the more difficult this is going to be. So I would not do that. I would put a bigger ball on the end of, like here where I'm going to do the paws. I made it slightly fatter down at that end than at the top, and I'm going to work with that and take a little bit away from that as I work with it later. Okay, so if there's some attributes you're going to work with, you know, go ahead and set something aside for that. For example, I'm thinking, you know, this tail probably is going to be too big, and I'm probably going to need a ball to do some to support one of my paws. So I may have to get some clay out of this body before it sets up to make my ball. So go ahead and think about this while you're doing it. Make sure that you have enough clay for all of your parts while it's still moist enough to take from any of them and turn them into something else. Like this is going to be too big for a horn, so I'm going to take some of this clay. I don't need that much. I do, however, want it to be, the horns to be nice and pointed at the end, so I'm going to narrow them down by putting more pressure there. And while I'm letting these set up, I am going to wrap that end again because I'm going to want to work with them, and I don't want it to be all dry. I want them to set up a little bit, so I'm loosely wrapping it so that it dries out a bit. I'm going to put a little bit of water here at the tip where I'm going to attach it later, and put another piece of plastic there. Seems a little messy, but this will allow that main part to stiffen up a little bit, and then I'll be able to do more work with it than if I just put a little water in the end, stick my bit of clay there. That's really all I'm doing. I just don't want it to dry out so much that I can't use it. Whatever you do, be sure that you check back on this pretty soon. See how flat this is getting just from sitting there for a few minutes? So I'm going to flip my tail around because I don't want it to get too flat on one side. You might want to roll. If you have some leg logs or arm logs, roll them a little. I don't mind that the skull is getting fat, and I don't mind really that the body is doing that either. So those are okay.